Starship Vigilant, a Star Trek Adventures campaign.
So let me do the official bit. So this is Starship Vigilant, session 47. This is the 9th of March, 2022. I think what we might do this week is we'll just skip the introductions, given that we're a bit behind time, and I don't want to overrun too much if I can avoid it. So we won't go around the table. We all know who we are. So what I will do is I will give us a quick synopsis of what happened last time, just to remind us all. So if you recall, the Vigilant has been held at Narendra Station for a few days after its return from the alternate dimension, and basically has been undergoing refit and maintenance work. So all of you have been kept busy to varying degrees. Particularly, Giara will have been kept pretty busy, working hard on getting everything back up to scratch. And after you've been attending numerous debriefings to do with the situation with the Tilly Carl and the general tactical situation, and on this particular morning, you'd finished your briefing with Starfleet Intelligence that you're all kind of required to attend, and if you remember, you'd gone to the open air area, the promenade area of the station, and you'd come across an argument that had been going on between some Andorians and some Klingons, and one of the Andorians you recognised as being your own crew member, Talia Zazola, who's the Andorian paramedic, the young Andorian paramedic who's part of Vigilant's medical staff. And it turns out that the Andorians and the Klingons both formed opposing ice hockey teams. And as we'd established, the sport of ice hockey has bizarrely, for some reason, become very popular in the 24th century, and to the extent, particularly, that some of the more martial cultures, such as the Klingons and the Andorians, have taken this on, to a great degree. And there's even a professional, semi-professional league that takes place on installations around the Federation. And as it turns out that the brother of Talia, an Andorian called Zio, who's a hulking great figure of a man, is on one of these teams, the Andorian team, and the Klingons had basically were accusing the Andorians of having kidnapped their star goalie, who'd been at a practice the night before and had mysteriously not reported for practice that day. And the Klingons had basically accused the Andorians of sabotaging their chances. And so you had been asked by the chief of security of the base, Sar Develli, who's a Zakdorn female. She'd asked you to basically do her a favour and go off and investigate, see if you could find out what had happened, because her hands are full with her personnel getting ready for the potential threat from changelings and the escalating, tensions to do with the whole Tilly Carl situation. And as a result, you'd gone off down to the ice hockey arena, which is located on the base a couple of levels down from where you were, and you'd done some investigation. Do you guys want to maybe, those of you who can remember, are you happy for me to keep summarising, or do you want to kind of jump in with what you'd remembered? Because I'm conscious that I don't want to be doing all the talking. So can anyone remember what you'd encountered when you'd gone down to the arena to have a look? I know it was a session and a session ago.
Didn't we find that, as I say, the Zamboni down there?
Well done, Mike. Zamboni, yes.
Well, it's only because I'm looking at
Mike, I'm going to give you a point. I'm going to give you a point of momentum for that.
If I say Zamboni,
It's only because I'm looking at a picture of it. So.
You don't all get a point of momentum just for saying the word Zamboni, but I'm going to give you a Zamboni because you remembered.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it now. I'm going to give you a point of momentum because you took the effort to look at that. So that's quite right. So sorry, do continue.
We went. Didn't we find that it had chopped up bits, body parts in there, or am I thinking of something else?
I think. Well, you're not far off. I think you're filling in a little bit too much there. But what you'd found was, if you remember, you'd found some blood on the dried blood on the ice, which appeared to be Klingon blood. Osterhagen had taken a sample of it because that's what he does. And you'd also found in the Zamboni room. So that, for Sarah Jane, who doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, I don't know if you look in the text channel. If you look in the STA game chat channel, there's a few images there. The Zamboni is basically the kind of tractor-looking thing at the bottom, and what it is, it's the machine that's so that's the machine that's used to clean the ice after an ice hockey game. And so basically, this in the 24th century, your Zamboni is automated. It's not driven by a guy. It's a computer-controlled device. And you, as I say, you'd found that in the practice arena goal, there was traces of some blood, which appeared to be Klingon blood. And you'd gone to if you remember, you'd actually gone to the room where the Zamboni is stored, which is basically it's a garage, effectively off to one side from the arena. And you'd found, amongst other things, you'd found some equipment that had been discarded, and you found that there was a helmet. A goalie helmet which had been discarded, and the goalie helmet had its face plate had actually been tampered with to essentially generate a shock. So what would happen? So enough of a shock that it would actually render somebody unconscious.
So if I seem to remember, shocked him. Yeah, shocked him out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, where you'd got to. And I remember that Osterhagen had checked the device and had, you'd confirmed that was the situation. So I think we're going to assume that Chiara, you're just with the guys because you've kind of taken a break from your engineering duties because you've been working long shifts.
Yeah.
And things. She was called down to have a look to inspect the helmet.
There we go. Let's go with that.
Okay, so hadn't I gone off to talk to some contacts and stuff to find out if there was any organised crime grief between the Klingons and the Andorians?
Yes, you had. And as I recall, all you'd really found was that there was talk of obviously the kind of betting on the match because although gambling is not really a 24th century thing, a healthy gambling is okay.
Well, it's not it's not a thing in the Federation.
No, people don't need to gamble. People don't need to gamble for money, or they don't need to gamble for profit. However, amongst certain other races, Ferengi, probably the Klingons and other species, it's certainly a thing. Orions in particular. So yes, you're right. Within official Starfleet, official Federation channels, it's not a thing. But obviously, this base is very large. There's a large number of different cultures. And what you'd found out from your bit of investigation was that the betting on the match had kind of had swung slightly to the Andorian side, although that's to be expected because the Klingon goalkeeper who's gone missing was a kind of a celebrity player. I remember, if I'm not wrong, Kalish's didn't we establish that Kalish's nephew was a fan of ice hockey? Is that right?
That's it. Yeah.
And so this goalie is sort of sports personality that young Klingons have posters of, or hollow posters on their walls and that kind of thing. And so obviously the betting had kind of switched a little bit because the Klingon team were going to be down a man, but you'd also investigated the replacement guy who was a Klingon called Yatok, who was the kind of reserve goalkeeper, and you couldn't really find anything massively untoward. I mean, he's a Klingon, so he's probably got some shady stuff going on, but everything seemed to point to the fact that the betting was where you'd expect it to be. The Andorians had become more of a favourite because the Klingons had lost their star goalkeeper, but there didn't seem to be anything particularly pointing you in the direction of organised crime. So
Yeah.
We looked at CCTV as well, hadn't we? And that had been scrubbed or something.
say again.
Hadn't we looked at CCTV and there's a bit missing?
Yeah, there was some weird. That's exactly right. You looked at some of you. Basically, what you'd found was that, in fact, you'd looked at some footage, and what you'd actually only looked at the footage for the practice rink, and it turned out that there was no actual coverage of the actual practice match, and whether that was kind of something that had been done intentionally, or whether it was just that it hadn't been recording or whatever, was a bit vague. If you remember, you kind of made friends with a kind of a worker at the rink who'd given you access to that footage. So when we rejoin you all, then you're in this Zamboni room, which, as I say, looks a bit like a garage. It's full of kind of ice hockey gear. So you've got empty goals kind of stacked up, and you've got racks of equipment and so on. But in this kind of lost and found bin that the maintenance crew take from the Zamboni when it's been out clearing the ice and everything, you found this equipment that looked like it had been discarded hastily. So that's where we're going to rejoin it. So what we've had, so Kiara has turned up, and you've kind of been brought up to speed, and you've had a look at. So you're presented with this device. So I don't know. Do you guys want to do anything else with the Zamboni while you're here?
Can you remind me where was the
on
blood
the actual
found?
Zamboni?
Okay, so if you look in looking in the general chat, in the Discord game chat thread again, the image above the Zamboni, there's an image of the ice hockey complex. This starbase has got an ice hockey complex. So number 2, which is the rink to the left, is the practice rink. So number 1 is the main arena rink where the matches take place, and number 2 is the practice rink. And it was in the, if you imagine, top is north, so it was in the goal area at the north end, which would presumably is where the Klingons were practicing. As I say, there was traces of what looked like Klingon blood in the ice. And as I say, the Zamboni room is that room kind of is I think is number 12 at the top there, so it's sort of to the back of to the top of that image. No, that's the locker room, actually. I stand corrected. So the Zamboni room is the room next to the locker room. Basically, it's, as I say, it's like a garage area, and it's just where the Zamboni and all the other equipment is stored temporarily. And I'm going to keep saying Zamboni because it's a great word. So
I'm glad you explained. I had no idea what one was called. When you mentioned the Zamboni, I thought it was a race.
Well, it certainly sounds like it could be.
or at least a type of pasta.
Sir, it's a Zamboni warship.
It's a Zamboni warship on the starboard bow. Exactly. Just very quickly, Sarah Jo, this scenario again. I won't drag on for too long, but this is basically came from an idea that was posted on one of the Star Trek Adventures Facebook groups, and a guy had sort of posited this thing as a thing he'd done for his group, and I just fancied doing something a little bit of a change of pace from all the sort of heavy stuff that we've been doing. So hence the reason why you've become amateur detectives in a sports related crime. But that's good. It's all good. It's all good.
I'm here for this. Cool.
Excellent. Okay, so as I say, so you're in that Zamboni garage, looking around. What would you like to do then? So far, this is the evidence you found. Is you found this helmet that looks like it's been tampered with. So Kevin, you said you wanted to check the Zamboni device for fingerprints or tampering. Is that right?
But both tampering and fingerprints.
Okay, well, why don't you? You can. That's absolutely fine. So if you want to go back into, if you've got Roll20 open, if you just want to obviously do we'll do a test. So what I'm going to do is just going to take myself over there. So I think, to be honest, this is going to be
on his shoulder. I just say, can you check for any more blood traces while you're at it on the machine?
Yeah, we can do that. So that'll all come under I would say that would all come under an insight science. Insight science. Now you've got You've got some genetic related thing, haven't you?
Xenobiology, genetics, infectious diseases, virology, philosophy.
All the good stuff.
Cheese.
Let me have a little look here. So I would suggest. So you definitely this is going to be a difficulty. This is only going to be a difficulty 0 task, in fact, because you've got a tricorder, so you're not having to like dust for prints or anything. So I would suggest it'd be insight and science. I'm going to allow you to use a focus because you've got a couple there which are relevant. So if you want to take a focus as well, and as I say, difficulty 0, so you can't really fail this, but it might give you some momentum that you might be able to use.
So task is 3, isn't it? 2.
Yeah, it's 2 dice. That's 1 success, which is fine. So you succeed, and now what you can do. Okay, so I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you what you find as your basic success with that scan, and then you can have the option of spending that point of momentum if you want to get more information, or you can just simply bank that because you've already got 1 point of momentum that I've granted you. So what you find from scanning the device is there are plenty of fingerprints on it, unfortunately, because this device is used and maintained by various personnel. There doesn't appear to be any, however, and I'm going to, if I assume you're looking for either Andorian or Klingon DNA traces, the only thing you find is on the brushes, which is where the Zamboni is cleaning the ice. You find, as expected, traces of Klingon genetic material from where the Zamboni has obviously been out and has cleaned the ice and has picked up traces from the patch of blood that you found at the goal. There doesn't appear to be any signs of tampering with the device. So if you look over the you run your tricorder over the thing, you don't find any evidence that it's been tampered with. It simply appears that the device has gone about its program task, which is it's gone out after the practice, and it's basically cleaned the ice.
Is it returned to it? It's returned to its garage then, has it?
Yep. So that's where you found it. Is in the place you would expect to find it, which is in its garage.
And we found blood stains by the goal.
You found bloodstains by the goal, or at least there was traces of it in the ice, and it looked like the Zamboni had done its thing, scrubbed the ice, which is what it's meant to do.
I'm going to go out and scan the ice around the goal area and see whether there's a trail of stuff, because obviously if it's run over something or splatted something, it's going to drag it along. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see where.
Yeah, no problem. You can certainly do that. Okay, so yeah.
If this was it was either an accident or deliberate. If it was deliberate, there's a slight possibility that one of the Zamboni drivers, was paid to do it. Therefore, what we could do is get employment records and see if any of the Zamboni drivers haven't turned up, because the first thing you do is you bump off the Zamboni driver because of
but isn't the Zamboni a robot? Didn't you say it was a robot?
It is. There are maintenance personnel.
Yeah.
Somebody would need to make the changes for it, because obviously if it's a robot, it should have the "thou shalt not kill human" chip in it.
3 laws of robotics.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's
So is it possible then to get to find the list of employees and see if any of those maintenance or drivers haven't turned up for work today?
Who was on staff this evening? Who was scheduled to be on shift?
Yep. All of that is certainly possible. So should we take those one thing at a time? And has anyone else got anything else you'd like to investigate at this point?
No, that's all right.
Okay. So so Mike also Kaz goes out to the. You go back out of the garage to the practice rink, and as before, it's an ice hockey rink. This one doesn't have the stands, the seating around it. It just has a kind of an area around the edge of the rink with. It's still got the same plastic. Plastic cover around the rink. But as I say, this is a practice rink, and it's in sort of semi-darkness, or at least it's not. The lights there's like low lighting because it's not in use. And so you can go down to the ice, and again, as before, you can see that there's basically like a patch on the ice. It's quite noticeable.
Yeah.
There's a patch on the ice in or around the goal area. So, what is it you would like to do?
I just want to see whether it sets off like a blood trail. See whether it.
And okay, so you can. You can have a look with your eyes.
Yeah.
So first thing you're going to do, and obviously,
I've got
Kaz being a.
Yeah, she's got.
Yeah, what's your talent you've got there? Because you've got a talent, haven't you, to do with
cat like keen hearing. Acute senses, basically.
That's fine.
Senses of sight, smell, and hearing.
Yeah, that's fine. But I mean, as a Cation, I mean, basically Cations are humanoid cats, and you have, so you have excellent eyesight, and you have an excellent sense of smell, and also very good hearing. So you have a look, and there seems to be. It does indicate that there seem to be. You can pick up a scent rather than a sight trail.
Okay.
So that what you do, you sort of kneel down at the point on the ice where the blood patch is located. And what you do is you kind of scratch it with your claws to kind of ruffle up the surface to release a bit of the scent. Because if you can imagine, this device has compacted this ice down. So although there is still blood in the ice, it's been flattened. So you kind of give it you can literally scratch it with your claw, because you have claws. So you give it a scratch, and it kind of releases some of the scent. And you take a moment, and you kind of if any of the others are with you, you're looking around, and you're sort of literally sniffing the air, and you pick up a very faint trail, which seems to point you towards the locker rooms. So the locker rooms are located, again, back on the map in Discord. On the if you go back onto the arena map, so kind of number 12 on the map at the top is where I'm using for the lockers. For the training lockers, basically. So as I said, the Zamboni room is next to that.
Well,
and you'll get a vague scent that it's pointing you in that direction.
I'll make my way over to the locker rooms then.
One thing you cannot tell is whether the blood trail was coming from the locker room to the ice, or from the ice to the locker room, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in other words, although there is a connection, there is a trail, you're not sure whether it originated in. All you can tell is that there is, some of this blood has moved between the ice and the locker room.
But the point is, this is one end of a This is one end of a trail. It's it doesn't matter whether the trail come out here or whether it went back
that's
there.
fair.
There's got to be something on the other end. So I'm going to go back to. I'll go back to the locker room.
Okay, right. So Kevin, you wanted to, so you can, how do you want? I don't know how you want to play this. Tell me exactly what it is you're trying to find out.
Right, there we go.
So the who was the operator of the Zambini on that night?
Yep.
Were they in that day, and where are they now?
Okay. Let's have a look. So the operator is so you can okay, what you do is you call up your contact. So you remember you had this this person from the support staff who was helping you out, who's back in the office, and you can easily just use your communicator, and you sort of because she was civilian, wasn't she? Right, civilian.
I think so.
Seem to remember she's like a civilian engineer, but she was like a civilian sort of employee, not Starfleet. But you can contact her either through a wall panel or whatever, and she has a look at the records and comes back to you and tells you that the guy's name was Kyle Reynolds, and he's just a member of the support team, and he's just a maintenance engineer who's responsible for he checks the Zambini, and but he wasn't actually rotated on shift today, or he's not rotated on shift, so he wouldn't have been in today, as far as you know. So he has responsibility, but because the Zambini obviously take itself back to its own garage and sits there, and he's normally will do a maintenance check. But as far as she can tell from her records and looking at the like the time sheet, essentially the timesheet system where he would swipe in or whatever, there's no indication that he's actually been in the complex. As we established last time, you had evidence that both the teams, the Klingon team and the Andorian team, had been in the complex practicing, but there's nothing to suggest that he has been on the complex in between the time when the goalie's alleged to have disappeared and now. So, and if you want to pursue it, I mean, she can contact him.
Yeah, because it would be good to just speak to him.
Okay, you can do that.
Slightly other. I've got another idea for that.
Okay, well, she says, look, that's fine. I can set that up. Meantime, so what Kalish and Giara, where would you like to place yourselves? Are you going to follow Mike into the locker room, or are you going to stick with Osterhagen?
So I am going to, or Kalish is going to keep a keen eye on all of the sort of not bandstands, what are they called?
The bleachers and stuff. Yeah,
bleachers. That's it.
Bleachers. Yeah.
You can tell I'm not a sports guy. In the sort of, thinking that the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime, sort of thing, and also that if we're investigating it, someone might be wanting to keep a close eye on how our investigation is going. So I'm just keeping a keen eye on the surrounding area and see if I notice anyone peeking around.
Okay, excellent. Okay, that's perfect. Right, so you kind of set yourself up to keep an eye, and obviously Kalish is very observant, and you can kind of keep an eye on what's going on without making it overtly obvious. So you're doing that, and she positions herself and is just keeping a watchful eye out. And Giara, where would you like to place yourself?
Giara's going to follow into the locker room to find out what's at the other end of that trail.
Perfect.
Just a matter of interest, which locker rooms? Because there's like 2 or 3 locker rooms on here that are labelled
to the north of. Yeah, don't worry too much about the labels on the map. Just go with the one that says number 12, which is the locker room to the north, if you like.
Top left.
Because that's the locker room. Yeah, that's it.
Top left.
There's only one in the north, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the locker room that's associated with the kind of practice arena. So we'll just go with that.
Okay.
So you go into this. So you open. You go into this locker room, and it's what you'd expect. You see it. So as you enter the room, there's a kind of there's basically rows of lockers. Surprisingly, there's benches down the middle, and towards the end of the other end of the room, there are what look to be shower stalls. You can see there's obviously toilet facilities, but there's also shower stalls. There's communal shower as well as kind of individual shower stalls.
Is there any sort of like sports bags? And I mean, the night's stupid, but is there any sort of like a bag of? Obviously, how long's this goalie been missing?
Well, it was the night before, wasn't it? I seem to remember.
Disappeared.
So if there's anything there, it basically it's sort of like any of his gear. He left any of his gear in the locker room. Yeah, I'm just going to have a look around the locker room.
Okay.
See, we know which locker room.
Before you do that, does the tricorder act as a black light?
Hell, a tricorder can do pretty much anything. So
in that case, what you want to do is turn the lights up. And create a black light so you can actually illuminate any of the blood. Because whilst you might not be able to see it, if you do the black light, you might be able to see the blood. You'd need luminol, but it's a tricorder, so you should be able to. Essentially, you want to look for blood splatters to see in fact it was merged in the locker room and then dumped on the ice.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take those points one at a time. So in the locker room, there isn't any. I mean, obviously, there's a couple of towels lying on the floor because there's always towels left lying on the floor in locker rooms. So I'm led to believe. So there's a couple of kind of used towels, kind of scrunched up and kind of chucked in the corners, but nothing overtly. There's no sign of any bags or anything obvious, if you like. So I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't we get okay, Kaz, so why don't you make me a insight and security roll, difficulty 0 again,
Insight.
because this is not a difficult thing, but I just want to give you a chance to
So there's no.
see what
I can't really.
no focuses. It's just literally a straight roll, just to see whether you manage to actually find it. There's a clue which I want to see if you can spot.
No focuses. Hang on. So it's 2 dice.
So just 2 dice, 2d20, straight roll. Let's have a look.
Come up as. What did I get?
That'll be no successes. That's fine. You still succeed because
Double 0.
Because don't
Even
but don't forget this is a difficulty 0 task, so you don't need to roll a success. You just it would have given you the opportunity to gain some more momentum if you wanted it. But basically, you notice towards the end of the lockers, you notice that there is a locker which is slightly open. So most of the lockers are noticeably closed.
Yeah. Okay.
And there is a locker which is kind of slightly ajar. Just to go back to Kevin's point, Giara, why don't we get you to do that? You're probably.
I can't remember how to open up the screen where I rolled the dice. I'm not sure that it's working properly on my machine.
It's okay. Have you got Roll20 open?
Yes, I have. I did manage that.
Right. So if you look at Roll20 if you go to the right hand side and go to the top right,
yep.
If you go across to about the third icon, which I think is called the journal.
Yep.
And if you look in there, see whether you can see. Can you see your character sheet in there?
I can see myself. I can't see any character sheets.
That's fine. So if you just click on yourself, just click on just click on Giara, and then if you click on Giara, and then that should open up a screen, and you've got a picture of Giara, and you've got the traits. So you've got the trait of Trill, joined, and so on.
This is why I don't think it's logged me in
Can
properly.
you see the icon in the middle that says character sheet? Is there not a pop-out that says character sheet there?
No.
At the top, there's 3 tabs: bio and info, character sheet, and attributes and abilities.
No.
You can't see that?
No.
That's okay, don't worry. I'll roll it for you because I can see it, so don't worry about it. I've got it.
Thank you.
It's all good. I've got it. So what we're going to do is, Giara's going to do a. So you're going to tweak your tricorder to scan for. You're going to basically use it to emit an ultraviolet light, which is a minor tweak because tricorders can do pretty much anything. So I'm going to make it a control and engineering roll. And I am going to call this a difficulty 1 because it is a, it's not a routine operation, but it's not for you. It's not a massive problem. And then what we're going to do is we're going to roll 2 dice. I'm going to do that. 2 successes, perfect. Okay, so. Right, you can easily. Giara kind of fiddles with her tricorder for a minute, having Osterhagen having suggested this, and you kind of make some adjustments to your tricorder, and when you flick open the tricorder, and begin when you turn on the scanning, basically the sensor at the end emits a black light, and if you start scanning it around. I guess the entrance of the locker room because you're trying to find a trail. Is that right, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So you scan it around and you pick up a very faint trace pattern of the what presumably is this blood trail that's come from the locker room, and it points towards the direction of the locker that's open. However, it soon kind of fades away. So although you kind of start to follow it, but it fades away. And after a few steps, it's gone. There's no other. You can't see any other trace of it. However, what you also find is as you're scanning this around, and again, we should have specified, I suppose, you've obviously dimmed the lights in here because, of course, the black light needs to be in this sort of operating darkness, or as dark as you can make it.
Yeah, I've got low light vision, effectively.
Yeah, exactly. But as you're waving the tricorder around, you're trying to pick up this trail again, right? So you've followed it. There's a bit of a trail at the door, and it kind of, you follow it into the room, and it kind of, it just basically goes. And you wave the tricorder about, and you can't see any other sign of it. But as you're moving the tricorder about, you notice something at the corner of your eye towards the shower block, and you can see that the tricorder is picking something up. Is picking up some sort of could be more blood splatter at the far end of the room where the showers are located.
Okay.
We'll go and have a look.
Yeah.
We haven't looked inside the locker yet, though, have we? Either the open locker.
Well,
So, what would you like to do first?
do you want me to have a look in the locker?
Please, in case there's a head in there.
Okay. Okay. Expecting that.
No, listen. Kevin Spacey is not appearing in this film because it would be very problematic. So we're not doing that.
Okay, I'll open the locker.
Anybody else get that reference? Or... Right. Okay. So you're going to have a look in the locker.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, again, given that you've got the lights somewhat dimmed in here, or I mean, I say dimmed. It's not pitch black, but it's you've made a point of not switching on the main light. So there are kind of service lights, but it's quite dim. And you, but obviously because Kaz has got a low light vision, so you don't have a look. So you open up the locker, and what you know, okay, so you have a look inside the locker, and there is stuff inside the locker. There are clothes or clothing, but what soon becomes, what you can tell is that this appears to be civilian clothing. So in other words, it's not sports gear.
Is it Klingon gear? Is it? I mean, is there a sort of like Klingon boxes in there? It's a thought.
Well, it appears to be a female Klingon boxes. It appears to be female Klingon sort of civilian clothing. In fact, I think we established, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we established that this goalkeeper, who I'm going to have to look her name up because it was, I seem to remember it was quite confusing.
You just answered the question. It's a she.
Yeah, and it is basically. I mean, yeah. What I was going to explain was that the goalkeeper's name. Oh God, where is it? It's Chitai, wasn't it? Chitai Shon. And we established that she was a worker in the Starbase engineering department. And so you soon realise that this is engineering uniform, basically. Okay. It's Klingon uniform, but it's Klingon engineering, and it's a female Klingon engineering uniform, and associated accoutrements. She's got I guess a bag with whatever teeth files or whatever Klingons use for personal hygiene. And this stuff is all still in her locker. So her locker appears to be, as I say, has been opened, but is still open, and it appears to still have her civilian clothing in it, and there's no sign of any of her hockey gear.
Does it look like it's been, obviously when you're changing into your hockey or changing clothes into like sportswear, like hang your shirt up, fold your trousers up, put them on the shelf, and put your watch and stuff on the.
I think you'll find, Mike, that's not. I think you'll find that's not what warriors do with their clothing.
Doesn't sound like a Klingon.
They apparently just chuck it in there.
What I'm saying is,
yeah, exactly.
The long and the short of it is, does it look like it's been somebody's had a look through it? Does it look like it's been?
It's hard to tell. To be honest, it looks like this is just a messy person, and they've just chucked their gear in. They've chucked their gear in there, so it's not hung up. It's there's a set of boots. There's like footwear boots, I guess, and there's this clothing has been sort of unceremoniously dumped in there. I mean, you can't really tell whether it's been rifled through. It would be hard to tell. It doesn't look. It looks messy, but it could just be that she's just chucked a gear in there. It doesn't mean that it's been ransacked or anything. Okay, so who's going to go and have a look in the going to investigate this blood trace that you've spotted?
Giora will follow it through to the shower area.
Oh yeah. You want to do that?
Yes, please.
Cool. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, you
what-
keep cutting out. I'm not hearing everything.
Oh, apologies. Am I cutting out significantly,
You
or
seem all right to me.
can the rest of you hear me okay? Okay, cool.
It sort
All
of comes and goes.
So, okay. So what happens is you follow your you've got this tricorder scanning the floor, and it leads you to one of the there's individual, as I mentioned, there's individual shower stalls, and as you look inside, you're actually taken aback to see that there's actually a body resting inside the shower stall, and it appears to be a dead Andorian lying on the floor. There's an Andorian body, also it appears lying. So there's literally a body lying in the shower.
Okay.
So what would you like to do?
I call everybody over to come and see what I found.
Okay, perfect. So, so the rest of you kind of gather around. So you probably go and turn the lights on at this point, I would imagine.
Check to make sure that they are
as-
actually dead and there's nothing that we can do to help.
Are they dead?
Perfect. Okay,
Make
so
sure
yeah,
they're dead. They are now.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Okay, so yeah, you okay, fine. So you can, yeah, of course, you can kind of kneel down and try and find a pulse, and you've all Starfleet personnel are all trained in first aid and so on. So you kind of go into first aid mode, and you kind of reach for a pulse. But as you so you kind of turn. This body's kind of lying on its side. And this is appears to be a male Andorian, and you, as you sort of pull him over, so you can get to his neck to look for a pulse, because again, Andorians that have a circulatory system, same as humans. And as you pull him over, first thing you notice is that he's kind of obviously dead, because he's he's cold, but also is quite has probably gone through rigor mortis. He looks like he's been dead for a while. But the other obvious thing you notice is that one of his antenna appears to be missing. So as you know, Andorians have two antennas on their forehead. And first, as you're kind of looking for, you're looking to check his pulse. You kind of clock that one of his antenna actually appears to be missing. And looking at that area, you notice that the area under that, where his antenna would be, appears to be green rather than blue.
Yeah.
Which seems a little odd, but you're then kind of occupied with doing, you're checking for a pulse and so on.
Sorry.
And at that point, the rest of you kind of all come together, and you go through all the stages. Oh, there's a body, and Gyara says, "No, I'm afraid it's too late. He's dead." And as I say, you all kind of then come to this realization that this Andorian, there's something odd about the body in that he's missing an antenna. So
is he a changeling then?
Well, okay. So what you know about changelings would suggest he's not. But that's an excellent question. Given the time in which we are operating, you're probably right to think your first reaction might be, is this one of these shapeshifters? But what you know about changelings is that they're a kind of a fluid life form. So what they have to do is they have to revert back to their fluidic state every once a day. Yes, Mike.
I'm gonna get in contact with our contact in base security, the one who said to us we might want to look into this.
Okay, so you can. That's fine. You step aside and do that, and you kind of hail her.
We discovered a body.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes perfect sense. So you go ahead and do that. So you kind of go off and tap your communicator badge and say this, and you fill her in. So the rest of you are looking at this body who's lying. So as I say, he looks like an Andorian. He's wearing Andorian. Just might be worth pointing out, he's wearing what appears to be Andorian civilian clothing, rather than, again, he's not wearing like a sports uniform. And it's also worth noting, to answer Kevin's question, as I say, that the intelligence briefings that you've received have explained to you that the changelings need to revert to a fluidic state every sort of 20 for a period every 24 hours. And therefore, if this was a changeling and it was dead, it would have just basically turned into a puddle. It wouldn't still be holding the form of the Andorian. But that is a perfectly valid question.
The other thing, did you say it was green underneath the thing, or was it green blood?
Yeah, so underneath where the antenna would normally be, there is a patch of green skin, whereas the rest of it is blue.
It's not glue, is it?
Well, why don't you have a look and you can tell, and we can find that out. Let's discover that together.
Yes, I will check to see if it's glue.
Okay, so how do you want to do that?
Well, get the other antennae and just kind of see if it breaks off.
Oh, excellent. I like it, old school.
You wouldn't have got away with it if you were meddling Starfleet.
If it's not a changeling, could it be another humanoid that's simply glued to antennae on his head?
Okay, perfect. Well, no, I mean do you know what? I love that. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna give you a little. I'm gonna keep you a little extra momentum for that because I love that idea. So, yeah, you don't go down the science route. You just literally. So what Osterhagen does, you take that Vulcan pose where you kind of look at it and you're kind of considering, and you just literally reach down and just get the other antenna and just pull it. And basically, sure enough, this antenna just literally snaps off. And again, underneath the skin, where the Andorian should be blue skin, obviously, there's no blood, there's no none of that. It just literally is a patch of green skin. So it looks to be as if it's some sort of a disguise that this person is wearing.
It's been glued up.
Sorry, Sarah Jane.
I was just going to say, presumably they're not wet. So if we found them in the shower, presumably they're not wet.
No, so the shower doesn't appear to have been on. It's a good question, but it's no. I mean, he's just he's in the shower cubicle, but that's probably because you assume because it was out of sight, if you like. And again, because your scan has picked up blood. However, the blood does not appear to be Klingon blood. You're using the black light. You saw these patches of blood, but this blood appears to be doesn't appear to be red blood. It doesn't appear to be purple.
You say the goalkeeper disappeared. What?
The night before after practice.
How long ago was that? 10, 12 hours?
Yeah. Well, something like that. I mean, basically, she didn't report to practice this morning, so she was last seen at practice last night. Stayed behind, if you remember, to do some practice of her own. She said she was going to keep, hit some pucks or whatever, and then never appeared this morning.
It's sort of like, and nobody. Is there any way we can find out how long the body's been here? Because you
can turn it over and see if blood is pooled on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Look at that! Bloody hell! Somebody's been watching too much Silent Witness.
Watching is too much.
No, I mean, perfect. Yeah, all of that is perfectly valid. I mean, again, security will be here shortly, and will obviously there is you have pathologists and you have
trying to work
all
out
of that
why
stuff.
Nobody discovered this body if it's been sitting here for like 12 hours.
Well, I mean, the short answer is probably because no one's been in the practice at rink since. Because she was meant to report for a team briefing this morning and didn't turn up for that, and I mean that they haven't been back to practice since. So this is the practice rink changing rooms, and the last people who were here with the Klingons last night, and she was the last one to stay behind, and then no one's presumably been in here since. Is the short answer?
Can I?
As you say, the fact that there were still towels. Yeah, sorry, Sarah Jane. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the same vein as pulling off an antenna, can I rub this body's skin at all and just see if the blue does come off?
That's just creepy.
And if it's
that's just creepy.
Can I give
no, sure. I mean,
a good rub and
you can certainly do that. This took a turn I wasn't expecting, but okay.
He's not taking the DNA sample yet.
Yeah, give it time.
I thought I'd go to that fashion. I'd go to that saying.
I kind of assumed you had already done that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, sure. You again. You kind of examine this body in a bit more detail, and yeah, I mean, sure enough, the blue tint seems to be makeup essentially. I mean, it's good. It's good makeup. But yeah, if you kind of you just as you say, you kind of, or you've probably got in
I
your
don't know if there's a problem with my
engineering
earphones,
toolkit,
if
you've
they're
probably
breaking up.
got Okay, can you still hear
Can
me
now.
at all? That's good. So what I was saying was that you give the body a little rub. You've got some cleaning stuff in your toolkit.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hello. Have I just? Oh, good. That's good. I thought I'd lost everyone because it all went very quiet. I thought, oh, blimey, maybe it is me. Yeah, you give it a little clean, and sure enough, makeup comes off. So it's a blue makeup that's been applied, and underneath the skin is green. And we all know who on this base are in possession of green skin.
Right.
Humanoids, Orions. Yeah. So you think that this is an Orion body, and on closer examination. On closer examination, you can see that it appears that he's died because it looks like his throat has been caved in, and it looks like it could very well have been caved in with something like a hockey stick. It looks like a blunt instrument, basically. So he's essentially been whacked in the windpipe with a blunt instrument, which looks like it could very well be a hockey stick. And obviously has been left here, but again, given that he's
just have a quick
dead.
look around. I'm just going to have a quick look around, see whether the hockey stick is anywhere around.
Okay, all right, fine. So you guys have a little poke around, and there's no evidence. You can't see any sign of a hockey stick, other than there's plenty of hockey sticks in the garage next door and so on. But in the short time that you have to look before security or somebody from security turns up, and given, as we said earlier, they are short-handed, but of course they will come and investigate if you found a body. And so, sure enough, a couple of security officers kind of appear within a few minutes, and then they make noises about sealing off the crime scene. So you're kind of ushered out from the shower cubicle, and they start kind of taping the area off and taking scans and so on. There's no sign of the chief security officer. She's obviously delegated this, and given that the guy is dead, and appears to have been dead for some time, I guess they're just going to gather evidence for now, and it will be investigated. But anyway, so that's where we find you. Again, after you've discovered this body, you're then kind of ushered away a little bit. So, what would you like to do now?
But there's obviously now an Orion connection to this disappearance.
Yeah.
We need an ID on the body.
Yep. Okay. You can. Yeah. I mean, you can. The only problem you've got now is because, and again, you did the right thing in getting security. Of course, you had to report this to security, but of course, what this does mean that you're kind of now being sidelined a little bit because, again, these two security officers have kind of pushed you out of the, said right, okay, we'll take it from here, and kind of, ushered you off. And you've not been ordered. You've not heard from the security. The security chief has asked them to kind of look into it. Hopefully you guys saw that message from Sarah Jane, so she's having trouble with her headphones. So we'll carry on. Karen, are you still okay? Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here, mate.
Perfect, excellent. Okay, good. Right, so what would you guys like to do then? So you've kind of, again, these two guys are kind of bustling about. You're back.
I'm back.
I can hear you. Excellent. So, okay, so you've kind of been ushered out of the locker room while they're kind of fiddling about. As I say, they're kind of secured the crime scene. So, what would you like to do to try and progress this? Because as I say, you've not been ordered to leave this alone by the security chief. She hasn't told you to drop it. So, as far as you're aware, you're still investigating this woman's disappearance. So,
has anyone reported an Orion going missing, not turned up for work, or
I think if
is
it's
there,
probably an Orion, then it's chances are they're going to be part of a syndicate or something. So it's they're not going to be a general worker, are they? They're going to be specialists, if that makes sense.
Well, okay. Let's to put that to rest. You put so Osterhagen can easily contact base security or base operations, and a quick 2-minute conversation with the base operations confirms that nobody's been reported missing other than our Klingon goalkeeper. So there is no suggestion that there is a missing Orion. But then, as Mike says, if they are a member of an Orion syndicate, then the Orion syndicate would not be reporting such a thing to to base security for sure. It's unlikely that they would want Starfleet to be involved. So.
Yeah.
Cool. So, what else can we do to? What else would you like to do to try and see if we can move this
get
forward?
an ID on the Orion. I mean, I know it's not possible, but he might turn up in sort of like law enforcement.
Well, given that Osterhagen has, as we've established, taken DNA sample, of course. Again, you can easily go to a. In fact, you don't even need to do it from your terminal. You can basically uplink your. Because the tricorder will uplink to the Vigilant, because the tricorders have a ship link.
Security, base security.
Yeah, you can easily you can probably just hail your whoever's the on duty security guy on the Vigilant, because again, although the ship is docked, there will be there is still a sort of crew operation. There'll be a crew rotating through position. So you kind of hail the officer of the deck, whoever's working, is on the bridge while during this shift. And after a few minutes, Osterhagen, you send your scan of the DNA for this Orion, but they come back with no. You don't get any identification because again, unless the guy is in the system, so unless he's been scanned before or has been accused of a crime in particular, much like it is now, if he's not in the DNA database or the fingerprint database, you haven't really got any way of identifying him other than confirming that he is an Andorian, an Orion, but there's nothing, he doesn't have a criminal record, it doesn't have a there's nothing in the Starfleet database at least which identifies him.
Would the base have base security have a file on Orion criminal activity? Not necessarily specific people, but sort of like gang, any type of gangs or.
Yeah, I'm sure they would, but again, there's nothing to put it this way. In the short term, there's nothing to tie this guy because again, he's from his DNA, and again, you're only going from his DNA profile. His DNA is not linked to any known criminal operation. So yes, of course, base security have a large and healthy file on known, on Orion operations. But as has been established, Narendra is a frontier station. There are elements, so there is an element of criminality because it is a large facility, and there is an element of criminality. But obviously, that criminality operates at a level that Starfleet is comfortable with, if you like. So there's a bit of a black market going on. They know this, but there's no profit to anybody in stamping it out entirely. So as long as the Orions keep things on the down low and keep to their lane and don't present don't. As long as what's going on, but unless they cross the line into kind of active criminality, then they won't get involved. So long and short of it is
the next obvious question is there any Orion ships docked at the station?
There certainly are. I'm glad you asked.
I've got another obvious question.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I said this already when I couldn't hear, but did we check his pockets?
That's a bloody good question.
No, we
didn't.
Luke Gore.
And of course, this is the 21st century, and of course, they don't have pockets.
What?
Much like they don't have toilets, they don't have pockets. I mean, to be honest, what you can do, what Giara can do is, I'm not being funny, Giara outranks the two, because these two guys have been sent from security. They're kind of, probably ensigns, and they've literally just been told, they've been ordered to come down here, secure the crime scene.
I tell them
and
to
that's
stand
it.
aside because they're
Because
contaminating
as
the
we've
scene.
yeah, no, literally, or what you can just say to them, ensign, right, turn out the dead man's pockets, and he goes, sir, yeah, don't question me, and they would, they'll do that because you
That's what I
give them
do.
an order, they'll do it within reason, and yes, and again, if you get them to do it, then you're not, they're not breaking their orders because they're preserving the crime scene, right? So as long as you get them to do it, they'll do it quite happily. So they go, yes, sir. And sure enough, they go and root through the guy's pockets, and he does have pockets, of course, but there isn't anything in there. There's certainly no identification. He's probably got a credit. He's probably got let's say he's got like a credit, because as we know, Star Trek money is a bit of a vague concept, but they have he has some Orion credits in his pocket, not a great deal of money, but he's probably got the equivalent of like 50 quid or something in sort of notes and latinum or whatever in his pocket.
Mind you, wouldn't, would he? It would only be if he was. I was wondering because obviously we're in a building, so you would need like a security pass to get into the building.
This is public access, because this is just this is not as we've established. This is a
where we are is like in the behind the scenes part of it. If that makes sense, behind. Yeah,
no, you're in a locker room. You're in a locker room. You're not in a pub. Not in a It's not private. It's and this is like a sports centre, isn't it? We established it's a bit like a sports centre basically, but it's obviously it's on a starbase, but it's a big complex within this starbase. But it's essentially it's there for all people on the base to use. So
I'm just saying, there's no sort of like.
Put it this way: there's no sign of any ID card or any means of access. All he's got in his pockets is some currency, and it's Orion currency. And as I say, it's about 50, equivalent to like 50 quid. So he's got, it's not an insubstantial amount of money, but it's nothing, it's probably money for buying food but whatever. But there's nothing else. It's a good question, and these guys are kind of. Actually, these two security guys look a bit sheepish because they didn't think about doing that anyway. So they kind of go, "Oh, sir, yes, sir," and they sort of turn his pockets out, and all they find is as I say, currency. So they bag it up as evidence, but there's nothing else, obviously, of any immediate benefit to you. So okay, so you're back outside. So so you've been sort of ushered out of the. Once again, you're kind of encouraged to steer clear. And Mike, you asked about Orion ships, and yes, there are a couple of Orion. You know that there are some Orion ships docked currently, but as I say, there are a couple. So again, this is a big facility. Okay, now Kalish. You were watching the bleachers, right?
Yep.
Okay, so these guys have filled you in on what's happened, obviously, and you've seen the two security guys come down, and all this has gone on, but you've carried on watching, and as you watch, you actually after a few minutes, you kind of notice that there is movement. Up in one of the upper levels of the bleachers, and you can see that there's actually a figure in the shadows who seems to be watching the comings and goings.
Okay.
And as you see, you don't show any. I assume that Kalish doesn't give any sign of having noticed this guy, but you.
No, she's probably sort of looking in reflections and keeping an eye on them and seeing if they're just if they are sort of watching or if they're up to. I don't know, they're a cleaner and they're doing their job or something. But she definitely thinks that they seem to have a bit of interest in what we're doing, do they? Yeah,
and they're definitely watching what's going on. And as I say, they're doing quite a good job of it. But obviously, your Kalish is, this is your thing, and so it might be that they would not be noticed by somebody who wasn't quite as attentive. But you've you've purposely, I think, sat and watched and waited, thinking, well, we don't want to take our eye off this ball, and it pays off in that you see this guy, or it looks like a guy from, there's a figure, and he seems to be watching kind of carefully from above, as you say, bleachers are kind of descending sort of temporary seating, and he's kind of up at the very top and over to the other side. And again, he's sort of drawn back in the shadows, and he obviously doesn't think that you can see him because you're not giving any indication. So,
can I send a message to my security team, preferably via a pad, like a data pad, rather than verbally?
Absolutely.
To sort of have them not close off the exits, but sort of corner this guy so we can move in on him and apprehend him, rather than sort of chase him down.
So what you can do is, so what Kalish can do is you can, as you rightly say, you can kind of, you don't even need to make too discreet about it, because as long as you're not overtly tipping your hand, you kind of, what the others have come over to you, as I say, and have kind of told you what's going on, and you kind of nod and you pull out a data pad, and you're kind of like tapping in, and it looks like you're writing a report. Yeah. You're not paying this guy any attention, but what you actually do is you send a link to, as you say, you kind of instigate a text, essentially a text message. You basically message as I say, the duty security officer is, by coincidence, is Elias, Carl Elias from, the guy that we dealt with before. He's just on duty, and he's just basically sitting watch on the bridge, and so he gets this message, and he kind of then you say, you give him the lowdown on where this guy is, and within sort of 10 minutes, they are able to. He brings another security guy with himself, and he reports back to you that he is in position, and he's in a position that this guy, if he tries to leave through the upper exit from the bleachers, they've got him trapped. Obviously, he can't see them because, as I say, you can see that he's still there, still watching the comings and goings.
Yep.
And of course, in the meantime, what's happened is the guys have done their they've done their like scans of the crime scene, and so within a few minutes, a medical team arrive, and they basically get the body and put, they're like carrying the body out in a body bag. It's all pretty standard stuff. And so this obviously takes. Yeah.
Can I butt in quick? I obviously don't want them to move in on the guy, but I'd like them to try and ID him discreetly if possible. So if he does somehow manage to beam away or something like that, at least we've got an ID on the guy.
Okay, that's excellent. So do you want to order them to follow him or to apprehend him?
I don't want them to apprehend him just yet. But we will want him for questioning. But if possible, if they can, I don't know, scan him and see if he appears in any data records of known persons or something. I just want an ID on him. So if he does flee or something somehow, at least we know who he was, and it's not kind of like, oh well, we've lost our only lead.
Yeah, no problem. So, Mike, did you want to say something?
No. That's fine.
No, that's fine. That's all good. So, okay. So what happens is So that's perfect. So what happens is your team are in place, and they've basically positioned themselves outside, but at a discreet distance. So what happens is the medical team turn up, as I say, again, 10 minutes or so later. Once the security team have done their kind of tricorder scans, and they've done all they need to, taken samples and everything. So what they do is that the medical team turn up, and they basically cart this guy off, and they then start taking him away. And as you're watching, Kalish, and you, I take it you haven't told the others about this just to avoid tipping him off, right?
Yep.
So she keeps her eye on this figure, and sure enough, as the medical team leave with the body, he slips away, and you then get an update from Elias like several minutes later, who says that they're following him. So he hasn't beamed out; he's on foot, and he's left the sports complex. But they're managing to follow him because he's basically heading through. He's heading through the base, but he's not like being secret about it. And they confirm that this is they're following another Orion.
Okay.
And they say, they've got him in sight, and what are your orders? And I take it you just advise them to follow him and try and try and identify him if possible, but you don't want him apprehended yet. Is that correct?
No, they can apprehend him if they think he's gonna. If they're gonna, I mainly wanted them to get an ID on him before he tried to make a break for it. But if he is if he is getting away, I think I'd like him for questioning. Actually, maybe we see where he goes. I don't know. What do the others think? I know I should make the decision myself, but I'd like to hear what other people think.
No, we're giving you enough rope to hang yourself.
I'd say see where he goes.
Okay, that sounds. Well, I mean, that seems to be well in hand because again, your guys are very good at, even though they are kind of, they're obviously in uniform, but this base is full of people in uniforms and stuff, and they keep you up, they keep you informed. And Elias advises that this guy is obviously not in any hurry, so he certainly doesn't appear to have noticed that he's been clocked, if that makes sense. So he's not acting like he's being followed. He's just observed, he's left, and he's basically making, and they sort of keep. So you guys are kind of I guess probably hanging back whilst they're off doing their thing, and they're just following this guy. And they kind of say, oh no, he's just stopped and he's grabbed a beverage. So he's literally gone to a vendor on the in the Galleria, which is the main the main level. And he kind of has gone off and got a beverage, but he's drinking it and he's still moving. And after a few minutes, they come back to you and advise you that he's actually heading for one of the docking ports. And because if you look at the on Roll20 where you've got the base map, around the edge of the Galleria level, there are a number of external docking ports where ships will dock to the base, and so they're tracking him. And after a few minutes, again, they identify that he's actually proceeding to docking port 7. And at docking port 7, you can check with base operations, and you find out, unsurprisingly, that the Orion ship, which is designated Fading Suns, is actually docked at that docking port. So there is an Orion ship which is docked at that docking port. Now, what I'm going to do very quickly is just I'm going to basically quickly add in an image of this ship just for a bit of flavour. So just bear with me.
Do we have the authority to? Is it called grounding the ship? Like prevent them from leaving?
Yeah. You absolutely do. Your Starfleet security. You've got all of the you've definitely got all of the authority that you actually need. Now, so give me a sec. Sorry, I stand corrected. This ship's not called Fading Suns. It's called the Mara. Is the name of the ship. So if I just hold on. So if you look in the STA game chat, you should now see there's an image of a ship. So this is basically an Orion. It's an Orion, privateer / free trader, and as I say, it's called the Mara. Say again.
It's a good looking ship.
Cool looking ship. Yeah, I like that. I think that must be a Star Trek Online thing. I'm pretty sure, but I'm told it is an Orion ship. But I quite liked it. But yeah, it's basically it's a typical Orion freebooter. And basically, this guy, again, as your team have reported, he kind of, pretty casually, in fact, goes back to the ship. But there's no sign that the ship is intending to leave. Actually, the ship is docked. If you check with base operations, the ship has been docked for several days. Actually,
okay.
And all of the paperwork was in order, and it's designated as a free trader, and they're here doing. They're doing trade deals, and it's all seems, again, as much as any Orion is above board, it all seems to be relatively above board, and there's no indication that the ship is intending to leave. Certainly not anytime soon.
Yeah. Okay. So my orders would be then to that the ship cannot leave because of it's not under investigation, but it's part of an ongoing investigation. And if this guy tries to leave the station in any way, then to apprehend him.
That's fine. So what you can do is you make that notification. You talk to base security, and they note that. So basically, what they'll do is if the ship attempts to leave without your go ahead, then they can lock the docking clamps on it. So because these ships are docked externally, they're not inside the base. They're docked to an external dock, but they are hard docked, which means they're kind of clamped to the base.
Yeah.
And so they have to get permission from docking control to leave, and that means they have to release the clamps and so on. So they're not going anywhere unless you give the nod for that to happen. And similarly, you can easily put they've got a scan of this guy. So again, you can put him on essentially on a watch list, so he won't know about it. But if he makes any overt, as you say, moves to leave the base, then they will apprehend him. So your guys have taken care of this, and it's up to you. You can order them to hold, to stay where they are and keep an eye on it. Or, I mean, basically, all they're seeing is this docking bay it's a corridor, ends in an airlock.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's not much for them to see, really, if you see what I mean. Once he's boarded the ship, he's on the ship. Sorry, can I just interrupt you for 1 second, Mike? Sarah Jane, did you say something was there something you missed that you wanted us to do?
I just wondered if it's possible to locate the crew and find out if all of them are accounted for, or whether perhaps one of them might be our body in the shower.
Okay, excellent question. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So what you find out, again, from the records that are in your control. In other words, what you can find out from security is that this ship belongs to a captain called Paja Tizhenko. She's an Orion captain. Now, some of you may recognise that name because Captain Tizhenko was in fact the same Orion female that you encountered on the base. Some probably now, it's probably almost a couple of years ago, but one of the earlier adventures that we did when you were on that science outpost that was observing the collapse of a solar system. And if you remember, there was actually an Orion captain who was on that base, who was kind of
creatures that were living in the power antimatter.
Correct. And so, to your surprise, this appears to be certainly the records indicate that this ship, the Mara, belongs to the same Captain Tizhenko. You don't recognise the ship. However, it may, obviously this is in the intervening sort of year or so since you last saw her. Of course, it's certainly possible that she's acquired a different ship or is, captaining in a different ship.
Right.
But certainly this appears to be the same captain that you met before.
A couple of things. You say, sorry, can I? Okay.
Well, just 1 sec. What I was going to say was, in answer to Sarah Jane's question, they've put it this way: they've not they're not required to give you. Hang on a sec. Just there's an image of Captain Tizhenko. They're not required to give, obviously, personnel records to the base. You know that the ship's got a crew of 13. That's what's listed because they have to give basic information. But they have not reported anybody missing. Put it that way. But you're not able to tell at the moment whether they're all accounted for because they haven't reported anybody missing, and they're not required to file kind of crew records other than basic information. So all you know is that the ship has a crew of 13. And as far as you know, there's nothing to indicate that any of them are missing, but that doesn't mean they're not.
Sorry, two things.
Yeah, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
It says there's no a chance of it probably will be a new ship because if I remember rightly, those creatures that were inhabiting the thing messed up a destroyed warp drive, antimatter reactors. So she does. So
well remembered.
Chances are she's got another ship rather than repairing the one she had. Second of, is there any video footage of the docks of the boarding ramp? Because usually there's video CCC coverage of when people come off the docks, if that means come out of the ship. So it's like the boarding ramp. So we can get comings and goings of the people on the ship if they've come out. Do you see what I'm saying?
Interesting. Okay, yes, that's excellent. Right. Yes. So Kalish can request that information from the base. Again, you're liaising. So although again you have authority, but obviously you don't have access to the Vigilant doesn't have direct access to the base security systems. But certainly those of us who've seen Deep Space Nine know that there are essentially there are cameras monitoring the docking ports because, of course, if for nothing else, it's a safety measure. You know, you need to make sure, you need to keep an eye on these things. So, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so you can certainly. I don't know how do you want to view this footage, because obviously at the moment you're kind of you're in what's the word I'm looking for? You're like on foot. You know, you've been dealing with this the trail of this guy. So do you want to do this from? Would you want to go to the base operations, or do you want to go back to the Vigilant?
Well, do I have like a data pad?
Yeah, of course.
There'd
Yeah,
be a lot of-
absolutely. We've established that. Yeah, you do. Of course,
Yeah,
you're
there'd probably
quite
be a
right. You
lot
can
of
do it from your
footage
data
as well,
pad.
so you could probably get secure stuff.
Yeah, just give me one sec, guys. Hold on a sec. Give me one sec.
You saying, Kaz? You saying you need to sit down whilst you watch this? You can't do it on foot. Can't do it on foot. We've got to find a nice, cozy
All I
place
was
to
going
sit
to
down
say
and
is
watch.
we've got, if there's a lot of footage, we've probably got security. You've probably got a spare security team back at the ship. We can get to go through work through the footage and
Have them scrutinise it. Yeah.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll expedite matters a little bit, because yes, I think that's probably that's quite right. So as Mike's rightly said, the base can easily provide you with that footage, because yes, they do have eyes on all the ports, and it's not a secret. It's it's there for safety and security reasons, and so they say, yeah, that's no problem. We can do that, and you give them it's port 7. They say, yeah, no problem. How far do you want to go back? And so you can, I guess you probably specify what, 24 hours, or because obviously she just, if this is anything to do with the disappearance.
24 hours. Go over the last 24 hours and coming.
Right. So what they do is they say, yeah, that's no problem. And you can then they can send the the stream to your to Kalish's terminal. And Kalish, you can just, she just sends it. She basically gets Elias to get eyes on it and say that, but look, you review the footage. We'll just tell us about any comings and goings. And he comes back to you. So you guys go off and reconvene, and he comes back to you within about half an hour, and he reports a couple of things that he's picked up on that seem out of place. And the first thing is he's picked up footage of a Orion female and a Andorian male leaving the ship last night. I don't know, 2200 hours, whatever. It was last night, but it was before the goalkeeper goes missing, basically. And he says, yes, quite clearly on this footage. It looks like there's and again, the footage is not. It's not like the best, because it's a camera that's placed above the dock. It's viewing the docking port. But quite clearly, he sends this footage to your pad. You guys can all sort of cluster around it and watch, and you quite clearly see, off the ramp from the ship comes this. There's an Andorian pushing a what looks like it's like a trolley. It's almost like a like a hospitality trolley in a hotel, like room service type thing. And he's pushing this trolley. And with him is a what appears to be an an Orion female. And again, you can't really tell 100% from this footage because it's not the clearest, but it looks to be Captain Tizhenko, as from what you remember her to look like. And she leaves the ship with this guy, and they leave the they leave, and then some hours or a couple of hours later. So you've seen this footage. It was about 9:30 the night before, and I think we established that the goalie disappeared. She was last seen shortly after that period. And then you then see what appears to be a female Orion, or the female Orion appears to return an hour or so later, but there doesn't appear to be any sign of the Andorian, and there also doesn't appear to be. She's also not pushing the trolley, but you can quite clearly see her return to the ship, and then there doesn't appear to be any more footage of her leaving the ship
Can we put another request
from that point.
into security? Was there any
Yes.
transporter activity from the ship, the Orion ship? Let me.
Okay, so again, you can get that information relatively easily. Sorry, go on.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be personnel transporter. Was there any cargo loaded? Was there any transporter activity? Was there any external things? Basically, if our buddy's if the Klingon's been kidnapped and is been stashed on the ship, is there a way that we detect a way that they could get on it? Because obviously they haven't taken them in through the main airlock. So you see what I'm trying to get at? It's So if there's any like cargo transporter activity, was there any cargo pods loaded? Was there any fuel cells loaded? Was there any?
There doesn't appear to have been any unusual transporter activity that you're aware of. I mean, some cargo has been moved, but it's been moved by because again, that's nothing unusual in that they've told. It was some stuff was unloaded because when they first arrived, there was unloading of cargo, and there doesn't appear to be any. There doesn't appear to have been any transporter activity. Certainly nothing that they've reported. And if you look at the video footage, there are also. I mean, obviously there are Orion crew members coming and going during sort of again since last night. Again, because again, Elias and his guys have reviewed this footage. And there are people coming and going from the ship. A couple of people leave the ship with robes and so on, so they're not easily identifiable. But they don't appear to be Tchenko. But you can't be 100% sure. As I say, you caught a glimpse of her leaving the ship for sure. You saw what looked to be her coming back, although again, hard to be 100% sure. And since then, there have been people coming and going from the ship regularly, but there doesn't appear to be any. The Andorian has not returned. And there doesn't appear to be anything else untoward other than just routine people coming and going from this ship.
We've established that this Orion's wearing makeup, wearing a disguise. And we...
Yep. The dead Orion was wearing makeup, yeah.
Can we strip the makeup?
Well, hang on a minute. Don't forget the body's been taken to medical now. So
requesting,
don't forget.
We do facial recognition on the Orion and see whether, because I'm assuming the Orion was on and off the ship before it got made up as an Andorian. So if we can get facial recognition, we can then we can definitely link the ship with link the Orion with the ship. I mean, we're more or less.
Okay, so I mean, to be honest, that will take some time to do. Yes, it's all doable. However, looking at the video footage, I mean, it seems quite clear that the guy who left the ship with her was the same guy that you found in the showers. The clothing matches again, and bearing in mind this video footage is it's not super high quality because it's not designed to be. It's just designed to be keeping an eye on the docking area. But yes, I mean you don't really need to go to those lengths. You're pretty sure that this is the same guy who disembarked, and it does not appear to have come back. And you know the reason for that because he's now currently lying in a meat locker in the base.
Track these two with CCTV with security cameras through the station.
Okay, so Kalish, would you like to request that?
Yeah, I'll request that. See, I mean, I'm in the first officer, so I'm assuming I'll put a request in there.
Yeah, okay, you can do that. Okay.
You're probably leading the investigation, aren't you, Mike?
Guess so.
Or Kaz?
Well, I don't know, because also don't forget though, Kalish has got contacts within the base personnel, so she can probably circumvent it all. Because don't forget, she's got connections with the security, the Klingon security detail as well.
That's true.
So, but yeah, I mean, you work together on it. I mean, yes, I mean, you're technically you are the senior officer, but obviously you would probably delegate it and say, right, this is what we want to do, and you'd let Kalish deal with it because that's the first officer's job is to delegate.
Mike, how do you think it works between the two of us? Do you think we step on one another's toes at all, or do you think that we get along quite well?
Security is your bailiwick. it's that's your area of expertise. So
Okay. So if
yeah,
Kalish spoke up, then
no,
you'd
yeah,
sort
I'd
of
let you-
you'd sort of back down.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Just so I know how the dialogue would sort of play out.
Again, okay, sorry.
Okay, cool. So what we've established then is that this what we think is the female captain of this ship left the ship last night prior to the disappearance of the Klingon with a crew. Well, with what you assume is this disguised Orion pushing a trolley of some indiscriminate nature. She then arrives back at the ship on her own, or you think, because again she's harder to spot, but it looks to be her. But she comes back on her own. There's no sign from this footage of this Andorian coming back, and you know exactly why, because he's currently dead in the base morgue. But again, that's kind of circumstantial because you can only really identify him from stuff. So you've requested that there be you trying to do a facial recognition match or whatever, but that will take some time. And you've then requested for additional footage to be prepped. So, again, in the interest of kind of skipping through some of the time it would take for that to happen. So Kalish has ordered, and the base has Kalish has spoken to the base personnel, and you're keeping a watch on the Orion ship. And again, at the moment, it's behaving normally. There's no sign of it planning to depart. And meanwhile, you've been reviewing additional footage from around the base, and what you have found after some digging around is that footage comes to light of some footage from near the arena, and you see the same, what appears to be the same Andorian with the cart, with this female Orion, and they are actually joined by an additional Andorian, or what appears to be an Andorian. Although again, he seems to be. It's hard. Again, you can't. You've got plenty of footage, but he looks like an Andorian. But again, knowing that that the other Andorian was not a real Andorian, you can't be 100% sure. He joins them near the arena. They then go into the arena complex, and then you see one of the Andorians leaving the complex, again from cameras located nearby. You can pick him up on cameras, and you also see what appears to be Tuzhenko also leaving the area, but no sign of the other guy, and there's also no sign of this cart in the footage that you've seen. And bearing in mind, you've had to piece together footage from around. So as we explained, the base. There are some cameras in the complex, but you've not picked anything up on there, and you're having to piece together footage from the surrounding area, and it's taken you a while to kind of gather all this footage together.
And then they've exited without the car.
Sure. Well, you can't be 100% sure, because the only footage that you've got of them leaving is, as I say, you've seen the footage of her returning to her ship, because that's a fixed camera. The only time they were picked up on footage near to the arena later, but in that footage there's only you see what you think is one of these Andorians leaving, but only one of them, of course, and you don't see any sign of that cart. But again, you're not literally tracking these people leaving the arena door and all the way to where they go. But in the footage you've seen, there's no sign of it. So it certainly doesn't appear that this cart has returned to the ship. And you can't tell where it's gone, whether it's still in the arena or whether it's
what sort of cart was it? Was it
gone missing? Well, as I say, it's hard to describe. But if you imagine the sort of thing that they would bring room service to you, in a hotel, it's like a box cart.
So we need to put out an APB on this car. Did it have a license plate or anything?
You can put out a bolo on the on a catering cart. I mean, you can yeah, sure. I mean, all joking aside, you can certainly flag that with security.
To say we're looking for this object.
Has anyone seen this cart?
Just to
posters up.
I only recently found out what bolo stands for. Be on the lookout. Yeah.
Be on the lookout. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so what other lines of inquiry do you think you've got open to you then? So you kind of established that this certainly it looks as if that this Orion these Orions are involved in this somehow, right? That circumstantially the dead Andorian / Orion came from her ship for sure. At some way they've met up with another Andorian possibly, or it could be another disguised Orion. You're not sure. And definitely you've got footage of this the female who you believe to be the captain, leaving the ship, going to the arena with this other guy, coming back on her own.
We have to.
Yeah. Okay, and it's worth noting, in case I didn't make it clear, by the way, the footage that you've seen, as I mentioned earlier, that you'd seen personnel coming and going. Here we go. Perfect. Right. Sorry. So yes, excellent points all.
It could be that, in fact, the hockey match is a red herring. It's not anything to do with the hockey match. That was pure.
Well, it could be a green herring because we're dealing with Orions, couldn't it?
Yeah. But they've gone after this particular woman, the Klingon, for a. So is it a case that actually it's even a bigger red herring that they've gone after the wrong Klingon? They went there. So yeah. So what are the jobs of the other Klingons in the team? Is it a case that actually she would just happen to be the wrong Klingon? They went there looking for Klingon X, who happens to be working for special missions. Does that make sense?
What you're saying is, what are their jobs on the station, and what projects do they work? Are any of them working with sensitive materials?
Yeah, so we could actually be looking at like a double red herring. So that they actually went after one particular Klingon they thought they could get some information out of, or they wanted to stop doing something by killing him, and they got the wrong Klingon. So it might have nothing to do with the game and that particular Klingon. Does that make sense?
Okay, so you can easily find out. Again, we did establish some of the information about the jobs of the crew last time. I mean, essentially, they're all the Klingon crew. I seem to remember we'd established were mostly all engineering, pretty much engineering, or kind of. They were all civilian personnel, so none of them were. None of them were Klingon Imperial Navy, although also, as we established with Klingons, no one's really a civilian. So although they might work in they're not in the military chain of command. Most Klingons, they exist to serve the Empire, and their roles are mostly engineering. I think one or two of them maybe are like they work in the loading docks or but they're all kind of blue collar type jobs, if that makes sense. So there's nobody in intelligence, there's nobody in security. They're kind of engineers, or they're kind of dockers basically. I mean, it's not quite that simple, but they're like dockers. So yeah, but then none of them, certainly not on cursory examination. None of them are handling anything or would be involved in anything that would be secret or sensitive. But having said that, if they work in engineering, they're part of the, it's still obviously it's an important job. So that's certainly a possibility. Yes.
Okay, we'll leave it on the back burner, but that could be that we're chasing the wrong Klingon. Does that make sense?
For the right reason.
Yeah. So that'd be almost a double bluff.
Okay, so that's okay. So what would you like to do next? You've what's your next line of inquiry? How would you like to progress this?
Well, we don't want to we want to show our hand and let this woman know that we know that she was involved in the death. Maybe we've got locate the trolley.
Yeah. Can I just? I don't know whether this is barking up the wrong tree entirely, but a Zamboni machine, what's it got inside it?
Well, that's excellent. Yeah, well, again, that's not at all a bad question. So, I mean, what it is essentially is it's a as far as you know, all it's got inside it is mechanism, because what it does is it polishes the ice. So what it does is it goes up and down the ice after, because obviously whenever you have ice hockey matches, of course, with everybody skating over it, it all gets churned up. And so what this thing does is it basically goes up and down and essentially rubs down the ice to make it smooth again. So essentially the Zamboni inside it has just got the mechanism which drives the blades and the brushes which clean the ice.
So I didn't know if it had a big sort of big cavity or anything large enough to hold a trolley.
It's
Yeah,
not
with
that you know
Kiara,
of.
we're opening this up. We're having a look inside.
Didn't we do that last time? Wasn't that one of the things that
I don't think you got that far. To be honest, I don't think you got that far. I think you. So I think you sort of did a cursory examination of it. I just remembered, by the way, what that trolley, what the description was that I was trying to think of, and it reminded me of a laundry basket. You know, we talked about this. It's not a catering trolley. It's like a laundry basket. If that makes more sense.
So
Right,
something
yeah.
you can hide the body in. I've
Yeah.
put up a picture of how a Zamboni works.
Thank you for those
I'm
images.
looking
Yeah,
at it.
they're very helpful. That's very helpful. Yeah, actually, that's just exactly right. Yeah, that bottom one in particular. If you take out the driver station, that kind of is. Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. So there is a snow tank. So it's worth a check. Yep, certainly that's something you could do. Absolutely.
If we're happy to head back over and do that, then
Yeah.
not a bad idea.
Well, you know that the Orion ship isn't going anywhere without your notice, and you've got eyes on the docking port, so you'll know if she, you can tell security to let you know if she leaves the ship in the meantime. So there's no reason why you can't go and carry out further investigation.
That is likely to have bits of body in. It would have.
Well, you never know.
If we assume that that's very similar to the current one, it has got a corkscrew, which will kind of churn up things. So it's only be bits of a body at all.
I mean, you certainly found. Don't forget, when you examined it previously, as I said, you did find traces of blood on the cleaning surfaces, because that's where it's kind of rubbed down the ice. But you certainly didn't get as far as opening the thing up. So of course you can do that. Yes, absolutely. If you'd like to do that, what we can do is we can.
Because if there's nothing inside it, then that again could be another bit of a red herring where we're being led off the. If you wouldn't get a situation where a Klingon would defect to the Orions, would you?
Oh, well, what do you think, Kalish? How would Kalish feel about that?
Sorry, one more time, Steve.
All I was saying was, Kevin just had said, is it likely that a Klingon would defect to the Orions? And I was going to get Kalish's take on that.
Yeah, no, they're still not computing with me. I just cannot hear those words.
Exactly.
There is no way that is. Sorry, it doesn't. Those words don't go together.
That's what I thought. So the answer to that, Kevin, would be a definitive no.
Yeah, we might have to introduce Kalish to the Duras sisters, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, they're we don't talk about they don't talk about the Duras sisters, do they?
The murder's been faked. They went in with a laundry basket, put the person in the laundry basket, and so where could you dump? Actually, could you dump a laundry basket? That
Is there a
wouldn't be
laundry? Is there
or
a
a
laundry area in this arena?
I mean, probably. I mean, laundry again in the 24th century. Kind of laundry is a bit of a because I think generally what they do with clothing is, and again, I might be misreading this, but my take on it is they don't really wash clothes, because what they do is they just kind of repurpose them, because you with replicators. You kind of, you just return dirty clothes, go back to their sort of component molecules, and you just recreate a new one, right? You don't need to wash a shirt. You just create a new shirt. You just chuck the shirt in a device that will break it down to its component elements. So, guys, can you just give me 2 minutes? I'm just going to pause for a second. I'll let you guys talk about that, and I'll be right back. Okay? Just bear with me.
So it's the motive that's the issue. What if we could understand the motive?
Well, I think maybe you're looking a bit too much into it. I mean, maybe the motive is just they want to fix the game, and this is the way they're doing it. Because, as I say, if it's Orions, as I said, it's either the way I figure it, it's one of two things. It's either Orions are the people who did it, or they've been hired to do it.
That's pretty extreme, and that's going to really have the authorities jumping down and looking at it, because that's your first thought. Oh, have they been murdered to fix the game?
But who said they've been murdered?
She's been kidnapped to fix the game.
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to murder someone to fix the game. You just
No.
they just disappear and turn up 24 hours later after the game with with a hangover and a sore head.
But would you have all that blood and all that evidence that the circumstantial evidence that there's been a murder?
Yeah, but did the blood come from the Orion?
I thought we tested it and it was.
I can't remember. Did we test it? I know it was there, but was it Klingon? Did we actually prove that it was Klingon blood, or was it?
I don't think Steve said.
I got a feeling. Actually, thinking about it, I think he did say it was Klingon blood.
I think we had established. But also, we don't know how Ryan died. The cause of death.
The cause of death was a crushed throat. It looks like
crushed throat. Oh,
yeah. The Klingon smacked him. It looks like the Klingon smacked him with the hockey stick. Crushed his throat with
right.
it.
Was the hockey stick in the shower with him, or was the hockey stick disappeared?
No, because we couldn't find it. That's what
So what you're saying is it was the hockey stick in the shower with the Klingon in the shower with the hockey stick, right? Yeah, okay.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm back again.
Okay. What I want to know is why an Orion would disguise themselves as an Andorian. Unless it was
blame the Andorians because they're the opposing team.
Ah.
There we go. That would seem to be the obvious reason to do it. But again, and just to answer your question, I think I overheard a bit of a question there. So I think we had established that it was Klingon blood as well, because I know Osterhagen had tested it. Okay, so right. So is there any other lines of inquiry? So you've gone back to the Zamboni. So assuming that you return to the arena, and the security as we'd established, they've taken the body away, and there is still a perimeter. If you check the shower rooms, there's still a kind of a barrier to keep people out of that particular shower for the moment. And obviously, you'd assume that they probably closed the facility down for the time being, just while this investigation is ongoing. But you've got access, of course, and you go back to the Zamboni room, and as you saw, the Zamboni is still where you left it. So how would you like to tackle this?
With a screwdriver.
I love that result. I like that.
Sonic screwdriver.
Wrong franchise.
You'd probably need a sonic screwdriver, wouldn't you?
Tank that fills up. So there's going to be a valve that opens that you can fill it up with water or whatever it is.
Yeah, you need to open the self-sealing stem bolts, I think, is what you need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, but basically, look, Giara's an engineer, so Giara, you've got your ever-present sort of toolkit with you, and it takes you like 10 seconds to identify the structure of this thing, and sure enough, you can open up the tank because pretty much as per that diagram, there's that even a 24th century version of this device is doing the same job. So it's kind of the only difference is that it's got a computer brain built into it rather than it being operated by a guy sitting on a chair. But I mean, you easily open up the reservoir because what they do is they put it literally has a tank where it takes the kind of the snow that's or the ice that's come off the top when it's smoothing it. So you can easily open up that tank, and there's no body in there, and there's no evidence of body parts. Again, if you were to do a scan, as you found before, you do identify some traces of Klingon blood that you'd already established. But having you basically can take this gizmo apart without too much trouble, and it only takes you a few minutes to be pretty sure that there's nothing in there. So there's no body parts, there's no body, she hasn't been hidden inside it or anything.
Disappointing.
But you've definitively kind of ruled that out as a possibility, because again, it's everything you've seen does suggest the body could have been she could have been chopped up and stashed in there. But yeah, you've established that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now you're pretty happy that that's not the case.
Do we know from looking at the blood that we found, was there enough blood to indicate that whoever lost the blood was seriously injured, or you can't really tell from?
That's a good question. Again, Kalish would probably speak to this a little bit, knowing Klingon physiology. But I mean, there certainly wasn't an insignificant amount. But I think it's fair to say there wasn't enough to suggest that she bled out, if you like, fatally. So, assuming it was her blood, of course, it certainly appeared to have been it was an injury, but it certainly wasn't enough blood to indicate that she'd died there and that she'd bled out, basically, if that makes sense. Without wishing to be too vague about it. But
do we know, was there anybody at the practice arena practicing with her? Because presumably a goalie would be practicing with somebody trying to get a puck past them.
So the statement that you'd had from Gork, who was the Klingon, who's the captain of the hockey team, was that they had been practicing. The whole team, along with the alternates. So basically, the whole team had been practicing. She'd stayed behind and was just basically. She was just basically actually when they left her, she was like literally she was actually hitting pucks rather than keeping them, because although she was the goalkeeper, right, she was just still practicing her skills. And the plan was that she was going to meet them in the Blood Wine Hall, that essentially the pub, for want of a better description. And that's when she'd never shown up. So as far as they know, she was on her own, and she just stayed behind and was essentially hitting a few pucks, and was then going to come and join them. And it was only when she didn't show up for her work shift in engineering, in the base engineering, that they'd actually then taken it more seriously, because when she hadn't turned up at the Blood Wine Hall, they just kind of assumed she thought better of it. But it was the next morning that she was actually reported missing, because she didn't turn up for work, because she works in the Starbase engineering section. So as far as she was on her own. But again, you know that at some point the Andorian / Orion and the Orion woman certainly were in the vicinity. And again, you've got no direct evidence that they interacted with her, but it all seems certainly to look that way. So.
Okay. When we looked at the dead Orion, did we notice whether the dead Orion had any blood on him that didn't look like it belonged to him?
Excellent point. You didn't notice it, and I'll tell you that no, you didn't. There was no evidence of that, other than obviously he'd been, as Mike had correctly said, he'd been killed. He'd been killed with a blow to the throat from what looked like a hockey stick. But there was no evidence of Klingon blood on him that you saw, and you can certainly check that with base security, and they verify that from their scans of the body and whatever, that there was no sign of that on him. So, for what that's worth.
Okay.
Cool. So, what I would propose then, so it's now 10 o'clock, so I would suggest we might bring it to a halt there.
Okay.
as I say, I don't want to keep you guys for too much longer. I know I apologise again for being a little bit late this evening, but I think so. What we'll do is we'll wrap this up next time. So have a little think about the bits and bobs to follow up on, and I think you've got a couple of lines of inquiry to sort of follow up on. Anybody got any questions or anything you want me to clarify?
Not I can think of.
No,
Not that I can think of. No.
And if anyone's got anything, and obviously, this is again, as I say, this is a slightly different kind of setup to what we're used to, because this is a bit more an investigation. So if you've got any questions, feel free to ping me a message, or if anything occurs to you that you've got something you want clarified.
Me just post up, and that's a bit difficult for Kevin, but maybe we just ping it up in Facebook.
Yeah, well, I always just I'll copy Kevin in anyway on any discussion, so don't worry about that. Yeah. I'm happy to do that. But yeah, as I say,
even that one we had about Kevin.
What was that? I know that one. Oh no, don't worry. I won't post that one up. No, you're all good. It's all. Don't worry about that. No, it's all fine. Don't worry, Kevin. It's all fine. I deleted that anyway, so you're all good. No, it's as I say, I know it's a slightly different setup to what we've done before. I hope you sort of enjoyed the slight difference in the pace and the tone of it. Yeah. As I say, it's something a bit different. And as I say, I'm more than happy. Yeah, exactly. If people have got questions, and if there are things, if you do literally want me to sort of tell you about, if you've got questions about evidence or questions about what you found so far, then absolutely post it in the Facebook group or ping me a message, and I'll do what I can
tomorrow, because I need to know what happens.
Hey, Steve.
Well, yes, Mike.
It's NCIS, isn't it? It's Naval Criminal Investigation.
Yeah. Well, that's where the spin-off's going to be set in NCIS. Yeah. I mean, like I say, I just wanted to, again,
Yeah.
I'll once again mention a little shout out to the to a guy called Brent Knorr, who was the guy on the Facebook group who kind of had postulated this idea, and as I say, it sort of fitted what I wanted to do just for a bit of a change of pace. And as I say, we'll pick it up next time. But if anyone's got any questions in the meantime, give me a shout. And other than that, I'll wish you all good night, and I'll speak to you in 3 weeks. Cool. Thank you for listening to this episode of Starship Vigilant. Kaz was played by Mike. David Osterhagen was played by Kevin. Kolish was played by Kerin. Our music is Fanfare for Space by Kevin MacLeod, which is licensed under a Creative Commons license. See you next time.